Welcome to Elevating La Cultura podcast, a space where I talk with Latinas who are passionate about what they do and are willing to share their passion with others to change the narrative, especially for the next generation. Each season is centered around different topics, but all with a Latina perspective. This is season 6, and it's going to be featuring Latinas in the food space. I hope this season is inspiring and perhaps even nostalgic as we hear stories we can relate to. I'm so excited to share these stories and talk about food. So vámonos, and let's get into it. Hola, I had a great time today talking with Jessica from Soul Boricua, a company with a mission of bringing quality food and service that uplifts community. Not only do they offer amazing food, but they provide classes as well as products like adobo, sazón, and sofrito that can be found in local grocery stores and online. So please enjoy our conversation. Hello, I'm looking forward to chatting with Jessica today from Soul Boricua. We met through another podcast guest, Mylene. She was on a previous podcast season and she connected me with you. Before we get into it, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jessica and I'm with Soul Boricua. It is a small, I would say, food service business. We started as one thing and morphed into some other cool things. And I started this business with it's me and my two sisters, Lenora and Cecile. Cecile's my older sister, Lenora is my younger sister. I'm stuck in the middle. And I'm excited to tell you guys about kind of how we started, what we do, and all the fun things that Soul Boricua does.
Awesome. Why don't we go back all the way to the beginning and tell us what led to you starting this business?
Well, it's twofold reasons. The first is my older sister, I had gotten a couple of degrees. So I have a lot of them. So I have an associate's degree in culinary arts. So they would say that I'm a classically trained chef. I have a bachelor's degree in business administration, and my concentration was hospitality management. And then I went and got my master's degree in business. And after I got that one, my sister was like, "Man, Jessica, you've been working all these places in the industry. Like, I feel like you should be working for yourself and we could do this together." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." And it really started, the ideas really started swirling when I was working at a restaurant downtown Chicago, and I had hired one of my cousins. He was like the most amazing worker ever. Well, he ran into a little bit of trouble and actually ended up getting was incarcerated for a couple months. Of course, when he comes out, I'm like, "You are working back for me, and we are gonna do this." And unfortunately, I saw that there were a lot of barriers for him to get employment. And it frustrated me and it frustrated me. And then I'm seeing lots of people that I know that are a part of my community and who look like me having issues getting jobs. And so when my sister's like, "Let's start a business," I said, "Yes, but I really want to focus on marginalized people, like people who have a background that some businesses are like, no, we're not gonna hire them. We want to hire them and we want to work with them and we want to pay them a living wage." And so once my sister was pushing me, this situation happened. I said, "We're going to do it." And we just started to do small caterings for not for profit organizations. That's really how it started. I made it like this really quick menu. And I was like, "Okay, we're going to do this. And we're going to like see if people want it." And people wanted it. And it was doing really good. The menu that I created is actually a fusion of my background. So my mother is Puerto Rican and my father is African American. And so that's how we kind of came up with the name Soul Food Boricua, Soul Boricua. And that's kind of how this little baby was born.
So were you always like surrounded by food and the culinary experience when you were younger?
Yeah, so in my house, it was really different growing up because my mom, she had her dishes that are traditional Puerto Rican dishes that she loved and she wanted us to eat and she wanted to teach us how to do it. And on the other hand, my dad is like, "I want some soul food," what he's used to in his home. So my mom would really begin to bridge the gap between those two cultures and those two cuisines, which really are very similar and really play off of each other really well. And so the dishes that we had were untraditional, like We would definitely do our habichuelas, but we would pair with fried chicken because it went so well together. And I'm telling you, if you haven't tried that, try it. There's also like beans and greens, which is like red beans, but she mixes it with the collard greens, which is like a traditional soul food dish. We had like different types of food because my mom was really trying to fuse them together, make him happy, make herself happy, and make our tummies happy.
Did she incorporate like everyone into the kitchen and the cooking experience?
Well, once again, my family growing up was a little bit different. And so my dad set the rules that every person had a week to cook. So one week it would be all my dad's dishes, right? He would cook. One week it would be just my mom's. And then the last week it would be just me and my sisters. And so we would like rotate that way because my mom was the one doing a lot of cooking and he was like, that's a lot, to cook for our family every day. We always hated my dad's week because his dishes were not very good. And when it came to our week, I would say that I did the heavy lifting on the food. So I did most of the cooking, even to the point where there was a few times I would get upset that they wouldn't let me do things and I'd be like trying to snatch it from them. One of these days, my little sister will tell you a story about the chili powder and how it ended up all over her face because I wanted to do it. um, so yeah, it was a little bit of everybody.
That is a really fun way of like splitting up the chores. I know that like I am so overwhelmed when it comes to cooking, and my husband typically does all the cooking for our family, but when it does fall on me, I am like want to be out of the kitchen and not really I don't know. I'm more frazzled. I am a baker, so that brings me a little bit more peace and joy. But yes, I can definitely understand the overwhelm that it can be when the cooking and the meals are like the responsibility of one person. So that's amazing that you were able to find a way to split it up and incorporate everyone in the kitchen. Do you think it had the same impact on your siblings as it did for you?
Oh, absolutely. We all like really enjoyed our week of cooking. It also meant that we didn't have to clean the kitchen. So, like, if you cooked, you didn't have to clean. So, my parents would have to clean the kitchen. So, we look forward to it because then we didn't have to clean up. We could mess up all we want and we didn't have to clean up. So, we all were kind of partaking in. I would say I was probably the one more intrigued in it. And I think that's why I kind of went the culinary route when I decided to kind of jump into a career.
So, how was that accepted by your family when you said you wanted to go into the culinary arts?
Well, I think they felt that it was a no-brainer, right? Like I had been in food service, so I started working in food service when I was about 14. I was actually my sister had went and got herself a job in a restaurant. And I don't even think she was old enough. I think she was like 15 or something. He was supposed to be 16, but she went and she begged that manager to hire her and he hired her. And there was like a really busy time at the restaurant and she was like they wouldn't hire like a busboy or somebody to help her and she was like if I pay someone to come and help me can I have someone come and help me and they're like yeah sure so she had me come in I'm like 13, 14 years old and she's like this is gonna be my bus person and I'm gonna tip her out and she's gonna help me and that's kind of how I got my start in the industry was like okay I'm gonna come and be her bus person and she would tip me out and that was how I kind of started in the industry and then I kind of just loved everything about it. The fast-paced nature, right? Every day is different. And of course, the food, right? Because everyone loves food.
I would be interested in knowing what the experience is or was for you during school. Like for people who are interested in going into the culinary arts, like what is that process like?
Awesome. So, culinary school was amazing. It felt like I was an Iron Chef every day. Like you get a recipe, you need to make it, your chef tastes it. But there are some realities that have to be faced about our industry, which is one of the reasons I not only am in the industry, but I also teach in the industry. I teach at Washburn Culinary Institute. It's one of the oldest culinary schools in the country And the reality is that the culinary world is very male dominated, but not just male dominated, Caucasian male dominated. And so, jumping into the culinary school, I definitely didn't see a lot of teachers who looked like me, or a lot of people in class that I was with at the time that looked like me. It was most of the time just me, and that was something that was kind of difficult, right? When you're like, look, like you kind of look for a role model, right? Who can I be like? And it's like, well, it's kind of just you. And so that was kind of difficult navigating that and not seeing someone I can be, okay, that I can do that, which is one of the reasons when I jumped into teaching, I was like, I want someone to be like, look, I can be a chef. She is a female, she is a minority, right? And I wanted to make sure that I was like that example for them.
Yeah, I know that there are a lot of industries that are very white dominated. And I'm curious as if you have seen a shift in the past, I don't know, 5, 10 years. Well, since you've been in school, if there are more people or more opportunities for um, women and people of color to have those opportunities.
Yeah, I think there's definitely been a shift. I would say even over the last 20 years. If you're thinking about like the culinary world, you can't not mention like the Food Network, right? It's been around since 1993, right? And we see a lot of diversity come in play with the Food Network. And so I think as we saw, the Food Network come out and start to be a little bit more diverse, we begin to see that in the industry. Will I say one thing I always tell my students is that justice takes time, right? And fairness takes time. So I wouldn't say that it's like, it's a curve. It takes a little time for we see like more diversity, more things, but it's definitely not where it was the last 20 years, or even when I was in culinary school. It's definitely more diverse. And I would say, even looking at my students, many of them, it's heavy minority driven, which I think is really amazing, because I think it's important for us to showcase not just what we learn in culinary school, but just like I did with my business, is showcase what I grew up with, the flavors, the textures, the spices, right? It's important to make sure that all of that is showcased, right? And I think that that's why there needs to be more diversity, because there's so many flavors out there that probably haven't even been touched yet. So many ideas that comes in when you bring in diversity into the culinary world.
I think that's so beautiful that you have taken what you've learned and kind of added your own culture to it. And like you said, that's beautiful. Like we need more of that. We need more diversity, more flavors. And I just think it's so amazing that you're able to be teaching other people to do the same. When you were in school, did you find that there was a diversity or more flavors in the recipes that you were asked to create?
Not really, right? They want to teach you this is the basics, right? And most of the culinary world, when we're thinking about like how it started, well, not how it started, but how we start to see like the modern day culinary school, it's very French driven. And so they have the mother sauces, they have the stocks that they want you to make. And so you learn this very base, this is how it starts. But it's important to learn the base, right? The foundation, because then from there I can add my twist, right? I can add my things. And so that's really what we see. We all had to teach a class. We all have to take a class that is like an international class where you're learning about different cultures and things like that. And I would say one of the things that really began to shock me was when I learned about some of these internet different places and some of their traditional dishes, and how a lot of times when we think about the diaspora, like in the slave trade, right, of people, how those flavors imparted into other places because of that, right, and the localization of places, and how we see that that kind of changes how people what people used, and how we see, right, some of those same traditions passed on from one place to the other. Like we make a pastele in Puerto Rico, they make one in the Dominican, a little different, but the same, right? And how that same idea in Mexico is a tamale, and begin to see how that all becomes, a part of our culture, or everybody's culture, because it's a part of how things move throughout the world, which is really cool, I think.
Yes, that is cool. I recently started learning about that and have taken baking classes from a friend of mine in Mexico City. And a lot of the influence in pastry, Mexican pastries, is that French influence. And I was just so fascinated by the whole thing. Like, I think that the more we take time to actually learn the history and the richness of the, like you said, the diaspora and the meshing of cultures, it really is like it's exciting to learn about the connection between the different cultures because we've been taught in the US to see everything as separate. And when we start learning the reality of all the trading that went on, and like that also includes accepting and understanding the colonization and the traumas that have been passed on. But I think the more we learn about it, the more that we can have that connection to people who might be seen as different, but they're not really. Like we are all like so interconnected. It is actually like beautiful to see that. Um, and I think it's hard for people because like history is hard. Like the realities of how all of this came to be is hard, and a lot of people don't want to dwell on that. But I think it's important to understand it, but also look and take the beautiful diversity that we can that is our humanity essentially. um, and I think the more that we take time to learn about not just our culture, but different cultures, the better that we're able to advocate for ourselves and for others, and to, like you said, have justice and move towards creating relationships that are deep and beautiful and interconnected.
Yeah. I always think it's important to understand that with that bad, right? When we think about the diaspora and the movement of people that occurred, right? We think about the bad, you can't get to the good without going through that bad. And so that's why it's important to understand that and use that to understand what happens moving forward and some of the great things that came out of it.
Yes, yes. I'm glad that you said it like that. Now that we've talked about like your beginnings in the culinary world, when did this idea, or like how did the idea develop from when you said, I think we should like start a business, and how has it grown since then?
So once we started doing a little catering here and there, it started like picking up speed. So now we're getting orders, and now we're doing more catering. And then we've done some stints at like bars and doing the food for a bar. We've done a few things here and there. And one of the things that decided was that maybe catering wasn't as sustainable as I needed it to be. And so one of the things that me and my sisters always ran into was trying to find some of the items that we needed for our cooking, right? On the south side of Chicago. It was a little difficult, right? And we were south siders, and it was like, this is hard. And so one of the biggest things was sofrito. We love sofrito. We use it in all of our cooking, but we could never find it. Like we had to like make it. And so it was frustrating. And so my sister was like, man, Jessica, maybe we should make it, and maybe we should sell it. And I was like, yo, maybe that's not a bad idea. So we just kind of did some research. We came up with a recipe. We came up with a bottle. I made a label. Actually, my friend made the label for me. We started a website and we started making sofrito. And there was a Whole Foods coming into our neighborhood, and they were looking for businesses that wanted to kind of be in the store. And we pitched it to them. They tasted it, and they were like, "This is amazing. We want it in the store." And so we had to do a few more things to get it ready to be like Whole Foods ready. But for the past, I think 7 years now, we were in the Whole Foods in Inglewood. That store is now closing, but we are in the Fresh Market, which is 2 blocks away from the Whole Foods in Inglewood. And really, people don't understand. Like, yes, it's great. We make sofrito; it's wonderful. It's a really good way to flavor your food without adding a whole bunch of salt and all that good stuff. But for us, it's a necessity because now I don't have to make it today. I can go buy it if I need it, right? And that was really what was fundamental for us. Since the sofrito during COVID, we actually created like 2 more spices. And these aren't like sofrito where it's like needs to be refrigerated. These are just spices. Um, all of our spices start with soul, like soul food. So it's soul frito and soul son and soul dobo. And those are takes on obviously sazón and adobo. But we decided that we wanted to do something a little bit healthier, so not as much salt. They're natural ingredients, and so we have those 3 spices that we do. And then on top of that, we have a what I would call like a consulting arm of the business, where we one of the pillars that we started the business on was making sure that marginalized people were heard and marginalized people had jobs. And so one of the things that I realized when working with people who might be re-entering citizens, or maybe someone who just hasn't worked in a long time, that they needed some of those soft skills. And so I started doing trainings with different organizations that were also focusing on marginalized people and making sure that they had those skills to kind of get into the workplace and be successful in the workplace. It's one thing to give me a job, and if I don't know, how to time manage or things like that, then I won't be successful. So we have that arm of the business as well.
That's amazing. How did you develop that arm of the business? Or maybe I should say, do one of your sisters take over like management of that area?
I think we all kind of share things as we see fit. Me and my older sister both have kids, so we're juggling kids. And then my little sister has a really stressful job, so she's juggling that. And so whenever we can kind of help each other, we help each other, and we kind of like move things around that way. And so we just work really seamlessly together. I will say seamlessly, that doesn't mean without headaches, but seamlessly.
Yeah, I was going to ask how it is working with family. Are you able to focus on family time when you guys are all together, or is it always business? Like how do you do all of the things?
Occasionally we'll talk about business during family time, but usually not. Usually we're really kind of trying to focus on just being a family. My family is way too close. Well, that's what my husband says. Way too close. Like we're very close. So it's not like we're just talking once a week. We're talking multiple times a week. We know what's going on, and that way it kind of helps keep things in flow. The other thing that I appreciate about working with family that you don't get when you're working with other people is that we know each other. So that means that if I decide that I didn't like what you did, I can tell you and I can be blunt about that. As opposed, you might gotta sugar it up a little bit when you talk to somebody else. And for that reason, my little sister, I probably fired her about 3 or 4 times.
Oh my gosh, how did that work?
Just say, "Hey, you're fired," and she's like, "Whatever, Jessica." And then a couple days later, she knows she's hired back on. But in the heat of the moment, fired.
That is too funny, but I think you're totally right. Like when you're working with family, it's that much harder because they're family and it comes with all of the baggage and all of the relationship attached to it, but you can also just be real and know that at the end of the day, you're family and you guys love each other. Where does your inspiration come from when you cook, when you create all these recipes?
really, this sounds really selfish, but it really is about me, right? What do I want to eat? What would like my daddy eat? What would my mom eat? Right? What would I want something that I would enjoy, that I would be like, I'm gonna come back and eat this again, that I'm gonna crave, that I'm gonna want. I really want something that I really want to eat, or that I know someone would eat, or that I know my parents would eat. Like I don't want to make just food because it looks pretty. I want to cook food that like touches the soul and makes you feel all warm and takes you back to a place. You're like, oh man, I haven't had anything like this in forever. That's really where I get most of the inspiration for any recipes or anything that I create. I want to be like, I want to eat this too.
I just had lunch a few hours ago and now I'm hungry again
I'm
hearing
sorry.
about all your food. No, I think that's amazing. Is there anyone in particular that has really influenced you in your journey?
Um, well, I would have to say a lot of my inspiration came from just my family, right? So my sisters, my mom, like we came from very humble beginnings, right? And so I really wanted to make sure that what I did, not only did I make them proud, but even my grandmother. So my abuela, she passed a couple years back, and a lot of these recipes, a lot of things that I do, I saw her doing. I saw her meticulously, you know, um, placing the masa over the pastelas and making sure it was just right, right? I saw her doing these things. And I really just wanted to make sure that when I was doing the recipes, when I was making this food, when I was getting ready to make coquito, because I'm about to make some coquitos, coquito season. When I was getting ready to do it, I just wanted to make sure that like she would taste it, she would think it was good, and then I would be like, okay, I got the stamp of approval. I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that way. They're like, if I can get this to taste like my abuela or my mom, then I'm good to go. I think that's what a lot of people aspire to because I don't know, our recipes are just so good and they're so particular too. Like, there's no exact measurements. It's just like what you're feeling and what is being poured out from your being.
It's also a part of like our lineage. It's a part of how, like when you think about culture, and even like cultures from back in the day when there wasn't, Instagram, and there wasn't a way to keep those recipes. The way they told their stories was through food. The way they got together was through food. And to be able to make that continue to happen, I think is really important, because those are pieces of the culture that, due to the way things are now, we kind of lose, right? Right now, I can talk to you via Zoom, or I can do this. We're getting together and being hands on and having these recipes that can carry on a lineage. I think that's important. We just recently did a pastela day with my cousins on my mom's side, the Puerto Rican side. It was all of us together, and we did it on my grandmother's birthday. And it was like really amazing to be like together, right? When it's hard to get everybody together, and we're making something that she would have made in honor of her. And hopefully, because it was kind of my recipe, so hopefully it was good. I liked them, but I don't know if everybody else thought so. But it felt like, I hope this is like something that we can carry on, because that's what my daughter needs to know. Like I have definitely taught her how to make sofrito. I've definitely taught her these things. And it's how we kind of keep that legacy alive, which I think is even more important when you think about the diaspora of people, that we keep these small things that kind of kept them together in difficult times, that we keep it going from culture and generation to generation.
Yes, I am so moved by that, and it's something that I think we all like have in the back of our minds, or a lot of us have in the back of our minds, but sometimes it's good to vocalize it and say like, no, we're being intentional about what we're doing and we need to appreciate this so that way we can continue our cultural legacy. So yes, I think that's so beautiful. And especially as we're going into like the holiday season, I think it's important for us to be acknowledging that, be mindful of that as we interact with our families and interact with our kids and make the bridge between those two generations.
Yep, absolutely.
So, what was your favorite food or drink when you were growing up?
I think we ate a lot of watermelon in my house. I think like all the old pictures that I look at, I'm like, why are we always like, and the way we eat a watermelon, I promise you, my husband despises the way that my family eats a watermelon. When we get together, we'll cut it in half and we're just forks in. Like we're not cutting it up into pieces. We're just in there. And he's like, that is so, you're disrespecting the watermelon. He gets so upset about it. But that's the way we do it. That's the way we did it when I was growing up. So that's just kind of the way I like to do it. And then favorite thing to drink. Well, I probably shouldn't say this, but coquito, even when I was little, because definitely someone would sneak us a little bit so we knew how it tasted. And that was definitely what inspired me that when I got older, that was one of the first things I wanted to learn was how does my abuela make it? She never gave me the recipe that was, close to her heart. But she would, I was able to replicate it to the point where when she would come over, she would drink it and she would be happy with it. So this was good. And it was crazy because she would bring some for the holidays and she'll have it in like, the party bottle. And then she would bring my husband his own. I'm like, well, why does he get a special one? Like, why does he have to share with the rest of us? She always bring him his own. I'd be so upset. And he would hide it. I couldn't even get it. I don't know if she put extra in it. I don't know what she did, but it was, couldn't get any.
That is so funny. I love it. Would you say that those are like your favorite food and drink now, or how has that changed since you've been older?
I definitely think that my palate has gotten a little grown. Like watermelon's not bad, but it's not one of my favorite things anymore. I'm a really I'm a really big cheese person. Like any cheese, I want to taste it. I want to try it. Give me some good fresh baked bread and some cheese, and I'm happy. Like I can eat that for the rest of my life, and I'll be happy. Some different cheeses from all. I love it. I love it. I'll do that tonight. Like usually on my Friday nights when I'm finally done with work, whatever time that is, I'll get some cheese and some crackers, and that's it. That's what all I'll eat: cheese and crackers. But coquitos still my favorite.
Yes. So when are you going to start making it for the year?
So I got all the ingredients. I'm waiting for my bottles to come because I put them in wine bottles because that's one of my dreams is to own a winery one day. But I put them in wine bottles, and so I'm just waiting for the bottles. So I was hoping this weekend, but looking like more like sometime next week.
And do you sell them like for other people to purchase, or you just make them for
Yes.
family?
Oh, I do. I sell them. I also give them as gifts. So I make a lot, which is why I'm waiting for the bottles because there's a lot of bottles. So I make a lot. And so I usually I make them two ways. I make it traditional and I also make it vegan.
Oh, good to know. For anyone listening, be on the lookout. Be on the lookout. That's awesome. As a Latina, what were past ideas, patterns, or limiting beliefs that you've had to work through as you built your business?
um, I think the biggest thing and the biggest obstacle that was always like I'm gonna do this is well, one, are they gonna take me serious? Because first of all, I look young, right? Like you don't have enough experience to do this. But second, I'm a female, right? And second, I'm a minority, and I think that that is something that is a sometimes we can view it as a barrier. And what I realized as I continue to do businesses and work with different organizations, it actually becomes less of a burden than people think. It's actually a commodity because it's so few of us, right? And if you have to work through kind of what I would call what they call like the imposter syndrome. And it's funny that I bring that up because I'm working on my PhD and my dissertation is on imposter syndrome among millennials. But you have to work through the fact that you think that maybe you're not supposed to be here because you're the only one there, right? Many times when I'm in meetings or talking or doing things, when I'm talking to a big business, it's just me. Like many times I'm the only female in the room. Sometimes I'm the only African American woman in the room. Sometimes I'm the only Latina in the room. And so because of that, that can be really intimidating if you let it intimidate you, right? And I think it's important for us to not walk in the room saying, I'm the only, right? And feeling like you're the only, but really be like, I'm the commodity here, right? There's nobody else like me in here. So they need my ideas. They need this diversity that I bring to the table. And I had to really start to think that way, because otherwise you get kind of psyched out and get a little bit of anxiety and be like, oh my God, you walk in the room and there's no faces look like you. You're like, oh my God, here we go. But now it's like, oh, I'm the commodity in the room. They're going to be looking to me to answer some of these questions because they can't answer them because they're not of the culture. They don't know what it is. And I think if I started to do that earlier, I might not have felt like I couldn't do it earlier. But now that I know it and I'm like walking in it, I just feel like I can do anything I want to do.
I really think that imposter syndrome, like, and I don't know, I'm not studying it like for my PhD, but I first heard about that. I think I was already starting my business. And when I heard that term, I was like, this is what I've been experiencing years, for years. And you don't realize the effects that it has had on like every decision and every room that you're in. And like you said, if you're already going into a space and your mindset is like, I shouldn't be here, then it's going to show up in your body language. It's going to show up in the way that you speak, and it will come across as if you don't, like, you're not confident in what you're saying. And so I love that switch of like, no, my voice is valuable and they need to hear what I have to offer. And I think that is so hard for women like us who have never heard that. Like, we have to tell ourselves that. And if nobody like has ever built you up to say like, no, your voice matters, your story matters, then it's that barrier to like jump across is going to be hard. But like, I love that when people talk about this, because there are people who are like, no, I'm here to tell you that everything that you've heard, that yes, you're going to have to work twice as hard because you're a woman, you're going to have to work twice as hard as a minority. Like, yes, that is true in theory, but that does not make your story or your voice any less than what you're making it out to be in your head. And so I love that empowerment, saying like, no, go into the room, you know what you're talking about, you deserve to be there, and just share. Just share. You have no control over what anybody's going to say on the other end, but you can control like your own presence in that space.
And I think it's important to understand that sometimes that anxiety, because what it really is, right, is anxiety. And when we really look at imposter syndrome, it's really based in like the hierarchy that has been built, right, in our culture, right? That's what it's based in. And when we think about it, it sometimes dictates our decisions. Like, I know the reason Jessica is in school forever is because I know that that's imposter syndrome. I know I have to come with more, right? I have to come with more because I need to level the playing field somehow for myself, right? And that's a part of like changing that idea. Not saying I wouldn't go to school and get this PhD because I'm almost there, but I'm just saying I know that influenced why I felt I needed all the education, why I felt I needed all the experience, because I need to level the playing field, right? I need to make sure that I have all these accolades so that I can show them, right? Prove to them that I'm supposed to be here. But you're supposed to be there anyways, right? And I think that's important for us to make sure that, internalize that I'm supposed to be here anyways. Like, it's not because someone is, because of my credentials, I'm here. It's because of my brain. It's because of my knowledge. It's because of who I am. I'm supposed to be in this space.
Yes. Yes. Which, by the way, like, you deserve all of the celebration for as much schooling as you've done. A PhD is amazing. When do you finish?
Whenever I finish my dissertation. So ideally next year I'll be done. That's my plan. But it's, when you have kids and work and then like a million consulting gigs and this, it makes it, you push things further back. And so I've definitely took the last couple months to be like, I'm gonna crank some more stuff out. Especially because I think the work that I'm doing is really um my actual publication is going to be really powerful as far as minorities, and especially when we're thinking about millennial cohort where we will be dominating the workforce in the next couple of years. Oh, actually, we're dominating it now, and making sure that when you get that raise or you get that promotion, that you don't feel insignificant in that space, right? And I think that's important.
Well, keep going. It's one step at a time, little by little. That's awesome. So, what encouragement or advice would you have for the next generation?
I mean, man, when I look at the next generation, so I have a 16-year-old. And when I look at them, like, man, I wish I had this this spirit that they have, that like like they can do anything. Like we used to, like our parents used to tell us that. We was like, I don't know. But them, they definitely have way more confidence than I could ever imagine. My sister was so confident. I was not that way at 16. But she's definitely confident. And so I think the advice for me would be to plan that out, right? Use that confidence and plan it out. I'm a big into planning, right? And I think they have great ideas. They have all this social media, they have all this technology at their hand, right at their hands. I think it's important that you plan that out so that you make it feasible to make it happen, right? Whatever those ideas are, I think that's really important because they have great ideas, they do great stuff. But if you're not really planning it out, it just sits in your head, right? And then it never becomes something. And I think for me, I think that's important. Like, what do you want to do? Let's plan it out. Let's make it happen. My daughter wants to be a veterinarian. She's at a school where she's focusing on that, right? She's going to go to school for that. That's our plan, right? We plan that out because now we can make it feasible. We can make it happen. And I think that's important because lots of people have lofty ideas. We want to do this, but when we start to really plan it, then that's when we really start doing it. So we can take those ideas, really write them down, really make it feasible. And in my idea, make them tangible, right? So make them so that I'm looking at them and now I can actually do it and make it happen.
Yes. Oh man, I am so inspired after our conversation. This
Thank
this was great. I really appreciate your time and you just sharing your wisdom, your story, your heart. Um, where can people connect with you? I know that you said that you have your website for your sazón and all of the things that people can purchase, but is that the same if they wanted to cater, or like if someone wanted to get help in re-entering the workforce, like how share where everyone can connect with you.
So it's a one-stop shop, soulboricua.com. And there you can hit the contact us link. You can shoot us an email straight through there, and then we get it for all things, whether it's food related, consulting related, or life related, right? Everything is right there.
Awesome. And then are you on any social media?
Absolutely. So Instagram, Soul Boricua, Instagram. I'm Jessica.Graham. um, yeah, that's it. Soul Boricua takes you to everything.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. I've appreciated this chat so much. And I can't wait for my listeners to hear.
Awesome. Buen provecho.
Yes, thank you. And I will talk to you soon. Isn't Jessica so inspiring? I love how she shared so honestly about running a business, working with family, and continuing in her education. We love to see the representation growing in the culinary world. Okay, amigos, thank you so much for listening. There'll be a new episode every Tuesday, so after you listen, feel free to take a screenshot to post on Instagram and tag at Elevating La Cultura or send me a DM. You can also comment on our YouTube video if you're watching online. I always like to hear from people and how they resonate with the stories that I share. So leave a review on Apple Podcasts so we can get more ears listening to these stories and we can continue elevating La Cultura. All right, enjoy the rest of your day, afternoon, evening, whenever you're listening, y nos vemos next week. Bye.